In TQM, in order to improve some type of operation or process, you have to gather a lot of data. In Adventureland theme park, this particular scenario, that data has been gathered for you. What you have to do is put it to work. Now, let's take a look. Adventureland theme park recently received a large number of complaints. So I think I see what it is that we are looking into. From customers who have endured delays while waiting on a ride in Adventureland's theme park's largest roller coaster, Monster Train. Okay. As newly appointed operations manager, you are considering the problem of delayed rides on Monster Train. By observing 100 delayed Monster Train rides over a 10-week period, you find that a variety of factors are contributing to the Monster Train delay problem. You summarize the results of your study in this diagram. Now, this particular style of diagram over here to the right is the undesired effect, the unwanted occurrence, the subject of our attention. So, yes, ride delay in this case. All of the rest of the diagram is indicating potential causes, major categories of causes like weather or personnel, and then contributing causes within those categories. Okay, so that's all already done. You also create this table to tally the frequency with which you observe the causes of delay. So, a list of problem areas or causes is here, and this is the number of times that you saw them over a 10-week period. Notice that when you're looking at this, each of these areas, delayed availability of safety inspector, for example, is up here. That's what it refers to. So, for instance, up here, we saw this 6 times leading to ride a delay versus mechanical failure of turnstile. You can find that somewhere. Oh, that's there. And what it's indicating is we saw that active over a 10-week period 30 times. Fine. What is the question? Well, the first part of the scenario asks Pareto analysis. Pareto analysis would suggest that Adventureland theme park focus on which Monster Train problem areas. Oh, all right. Now, Pareto analysis. Remember that Pareto analysis is it's essentially a statistical technique or a statistical framework to identify the most relevant causes of some undesired effect. And it relies on what some people call informally the 80-20 rule, meaning that, well, 80 for 80%, 20 for 20%. Usually the majority of your problem comes from a minority of causes in your system. Now, how is it that we're supposed to apply that abstract concept to Adventureland? Actually, in the case of Adventureland, it's fairly obvious. This is what you would formally do, though. Go back to your table of data, and you go, of all of these different causes for a delay on Monster Train, which ones are causing the majority of the ride delays? And right, I'm looking for the largest number. Is there like a major category and the rest of them are minor? And I'm definitely seeing that right there. Broken gearing mechanism requiring frequent repair. This is implying that in 100 delays, right, 50% of them are specifically because of that, which this is just logic. That would then suggest that I think that maybe Adventureland should focus on this issue of, and we would note that. First, we would recommend that they focus on addressing the broken gearing mechanism. Why? Because it is by far the most significant category here. Now, it did say areas, so it's implying like make 2 recommendations. Well, you know, logically then next, well, who's the next largest one here? Mechanical failure of turnstile. Okay, yes, if you want 2, then definitely that one as well, because that's almost 1/3 of them. That answers the question for Adventureland. How are you supposed to use that technique in general? We're just looking for the frequency of occurrences, and we're asking ourselves for which categories are the most frequent. I was essentially looking for the larger numbers. Oh, all right. So what we've concluded is, at least in terms of Monster Train delays, it looks like Adventureland, it's primarily mechanics. They're having trouble with their machinery. Now, next part of the scenario. The first diagram is called a what? Oh, right, this I was tracing in highlighter pen is called a what? Ah, easy. Fishbone. Or maybe more formally, kind of self-explanatory label, cause and effect diagram. Yes, this is a common troubleshooting tool. This is known as a fishbone diagram, and you see that it gets its name from how it tends to lay itself out. You put over here the head of the fish, what it is that you're studying, the spine, the major categories create the ribs, right? These are the causes, that's the effect. Well, there, that's the second part. Third part, consider the following potential improvements that Adventureland theme park is considering to address the monster train delays. Okay, so a couple things that they could do. Improvement 1, hire additional staff both to load passengers and serve as safety inspectors. Okay. Replace the faulty gearing mechanism requiring frequent repair. Okay. Oh no, the company selected to perform monster train gearing replacement work is also agreed to fix the failing turnstile in the waiting area for free. Interesting. 3, fire the staff that's arriving late for work and hire replacements. Okay. Or 4, invest in research and development to invent a weather control device to prevent bad weather. Interesting. Now, what's the question? Since each of these potential improvements involves money, Adventureland theme park can only undertake one improvement at a time, all right, and can only afford to complete 2 of the improvements listed above, 2 of them. Which improvement do you recommend first, and then which should follow second to reduce the frequency of customer complaints as quickly as possible? Okay, what that question is simply asking is based on everything you've been told in the scenario, prioritize. In essence, you don't have to rank all 4 of them, but you have to identify the top 2 priorities. Well, this just goes back to our data. Look at each improvement and ask yourself, how would that affect the past data? We're assuming that would be the degree of benefit in the future. So, like for instance, go back to improvement 1. Hire additional staff both to load passengers and serve as safety inspectors. How would that have helped in the past? Well, I'm looking at the old data, right? Delayed availability of safety inspector, that was, over the past 10 weeks, responsible for 6 delays on Monster Train. Now, they said also to help load passengers. I'm looking at the bottom of the table too, and that is key. Insufficient staff to load passengers. What improvement 1 is proposing would help both these categories? So, as a way to prioritize, I'm just going to note that. Okay, 6 occurrences in the past from the delayed safety inspection, 4 in the past from insufficient staff to load passengers, means 10 occurrences in the past would have been addressed by this. Now, what am I supposed to do with that number 10? Is compare it to the other numbers. Right, because improvement 2, replace the faulty gearing mechanism. That was the huge thing in our past data set. That was responsible, broken gearing mechanism, for 50 past occurrences. So, little note over here, 50 is what that would have helped in the past. And then that additional sentence, the company selected to perform Monster Train gearing replacement has agreed to fix the turnstile for free. That was the second category that we mentioned for the first part of the scenario. Right, 30 occurrences in the past were from failure of the turnstile. So I have a suspicion that this one's going to be a big winner, but at any rate, we should give it higher priority than the first one because it's a higher number of past occurrences. Now let's keep going with this process. Fire the staff arriving work for late and hire replacements. All right, how would that have helped in the past? Scanning up and down, staff arriving late for work. This is the only category that I see. 5 occurrences in the past. Now we're only firing and replacing, so we're not increasing the size of the workforce, so we can't claim, these other categories. So that is merely 5. Okay, I'm just going to make a little note there, 5. 5 occurrences in the past. Invest in research and development to invent a weather control device. Well, in the past, how much would that have helped if they could in fact actually control the weather? Well, then they wouldn't have had bad weather, and bad weather was responsible twice over the 10-week observation period. All right, well, then I will give it credit for that. That one's 2. Well, okay. If they can only follow 2 improvements, now notice this, to reduce the frequency of customer complaints as quickly as possible, then improvement 2 definitely first. Improvement 2 first, right? Because that would have helped in the past 80 times out of the past 10 weeks. And then who's the next one? The next one's improvement 1. Improvement 1, recommend that one second. Now you may be looking at that and you may be thinking, hey, now wait a minute. I mean, it doesn't sound really likely, but improvement 4, if they could really invest money to control the weather, wouldn't they be able to make a lot of money off of that device? And the answer is yeah. I mean, I think that they could make a lot of money elsewhere off a device that controlled the weather, but we weren't asked about that. We were only asked to prioritize the improvements in terms of what would reduce the number of complaints about monster train delays. And since bad weather was hardly the reason, even if you could control it, it is ironically would be then a fairly weak remedy for future complaints.